Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Tech Girl podcast with me, your host, Gertrude. Today, we're talking about something that affects at least 25% of the population, but is often treated as an afterthought. That is accessibility. My guest is Angela Fowler, CEO of Real Life Access, accessibility strategist and creator of Hiring for Champions. Angela is blind, and she's here to completely shift how you think about building technology, running organizations, and creating inclusive cultures. She definitely challenged me. We're breaking down what accessibility really means, not just compliance, but building things that as many people as possible can use as quickly and intuitively as possible. And that's where it really hits home for me, the intuitive part. And you will see why when we go through the conversation. From screen readers to wheelchair ramps, from alternative text, I'm very guilty about that one, to cultural accessibility. Angela is about to challenge every assumption you didn't know you had. Fair warning, after the conversation, to be honest, you will never look at click here, especially for builders, right? Especially for people that create technology. Trust me, you will not look at click here, see more the same way again. Anyway, there's also a math story. You will have to listen to it. Trust me, it's going to change how you think about how accessibility benefits everyone. Let's get straight into it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tech Girl podcast, the diversity dividend theme in this season. Today, I'm excited to have Angela as my guest. She is the CEO of Real Life Access, an accessibility strategist, UX leader, and creator of Hiring for Champions, turning accessibility into a business advantage. I am really looking forward to this conversation because one, I believe we all have a lot to learn. Two, I believe Angela is amazing. And three, we're just going to have a great time. Angela, welcome to the Tech Girl podcast.
Well, thank you for having me, and yeah, it's going to be a blast. I look forward to it.
Awesome. I think to get started, it's just nice. I'm thinking it's a good idea to set the tone when it comes to the terminology in terms of accessibility, because not a lot of people, unfortunately, are familiar with accessibility unless you are embedded in maybe the software development world, or you are a person with the disability that needs accessibility assistance. So I have three that I would like you to talk about, but please feel free to bring up any other terminology. The first one that I'm looking at is, what is assistive technology?
Well, and thank you for doing this, because, we accessibility professionals, sometimes we assume knowledge. So I'll start spitting out words like accessibility, assistive technology, but probably 100 other words as well. And the audience is sitting there going, what the heck are you talking about, woman? Yeah. So assistive technology is basically technology that bridges the gap between disability and, the things we need to do. So, for example, a wheelchair is assistive technology. In the software sense, a screen reader. So what a screen reader does is it takes the text on the screen and reads it, quite literally. So that if you're blind, you can actually hear the text on the screen. You don't have to see the text on the screen. You can hear it. And this enables blind people to, do, pretty much everything everybody else does on a computer. So assistive technology really can be anything from a long white cane, which blind people use, which is not to be confused with a mobility cane, which is the shorter, stouter version that sometimes has a hooked, handle for gripping, because they're used straight up rather than straight out front, that folks with physical disabilities use. We call that low-tech equipment. And the high-tech equipment can be anything from a screen reader to Voice to text. So basically that's something like Dragon Naturally Speaking, which allows you to quite literally tell your computer what to do. So if you can't use your hands very well, that technology can be essential. So assistive technology covers a wide, it's a big tent. But basically the idea is it helps people with disabilities accomplish what we need to accomplish.
Okay, great. Now that we know what the technology is, what does inclusive design mean, especially when we talk about technology?
So inclusive design is designing by default in a way that works for everybody. So, for example, I'll give you a visual example. If you have a building that has a set of steps leading up to the front of the building, a wheelchair user can't use that unless they've got a wheelchair from the future. What we've seen happen is sometimes the ramp will be placed near by a back entrance. And the analogy I used to use, I like to use is you have to drive by the dumpster to access the ramp. I mean, who wants that? Yuck. That is accessible design. It is technically compliant, but it really isn't inclusive because it's separate and not equal. An inclusive design setup is one in which the wheelchair ramp and the steps have access to the same entrance. So inclusive design in technology is designing web pages and software by default that work with assistive technology. And what you find out is you're actually making life easier for everybody. Because what if somebody's dragging a suitcase up that ramp? Makes it a heck of a lot easier, doesn't it?
It does.
If you label icons on a web page in actual words, not everybody can speak icon. Not everybody knows what those little picture thingies are and what they mean. If you associate a label on a form field so that clicking on the label puts your cursor in the form field, that makes it a heck of a lot easier for you, doesn't it?
It does.
Because there's more clickable area. But it also enables screen readers to read the label when the user tabs through the form field. It also enables you to open up your voice-to-text software and say, click on first name or whatever they say, and it knows because the label is first name, the label is associated with the form, the cursor goes into the form. Yeah. Okay. So inclusive design is putting yourself in the chair of the user, as I like to say, and saying, okay, not everybody uses a mouse. A lot of people use a keyboard. Blind people use a keyboard. People who have trouble manipulating a mouse use a keyboard. Things need to be keyboard accessible. People also choose to use a keyboard.
Sure.
That's inclusive design. Putting yourself in the chair of the user and thinking of different use cases, as many different use cases as you can while you're designing stuff that everybody can use.
Yeah. I definitely like this, and I would like us to go deeper into this because having worked for many technology companies, usually accessibility comes at the end, or as you have previously highlighted as well as compliance for some companies that I worked for. I think later on, it would be nice for us to talk about how we can look at accessibility in the different software life cycle and the different players within that. But my last terminology is usability.
Right. And, disability is something of a controversial word because some of us don't consider our disability to be that disabling. I don't consider blindness to be that disabling. I consider it to be a pain in the neck sometimes. But I don't consider it to be that disabling per se. I can still do the things that I need to do. Sometimes I have to outsource things like driving. But for the purposes of real life access, we go with the legal definition of disability. Mainly so that we don't have to spend time arguing about what a disability is and what it isn't. And I'm not a lawyer, nor do I play one anywhere. But basically the legal definition of disability is some condition that affects the way that you accomplish daily tasks, be it blindness, hard of hearing, your hands don't work very well, physical disabilities, cognitive disabilities, which is a broad tent in and of itself.
Yeah.
Cognitive disability does not mean intellectual disability. Sometimes it simply means you process information differently. That's a common misconception. It can, but it doesn't. But it does not. It does not always. In fact, I can even make the argument that in most cases it does not.
Yeah.
So disability by the legal definition, it's not our definition of our own disabilities. Just for simplicity's sake, we're going with the legal definition.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We have set the stage now. Is there any terminology that you would like to bring up as we go on?
Well, I want to define accessibility because there are so many different definitions. If you ask 10 people, you get 20 different definitions.
Yeah.
To some people, it's compliance. To some people, it's simply the ability to access something. Accessibility to me is building things, products, services, whatever, things, so that they can be used as quickly and intuitively as possible by as many people as possible. So this encompasses not only compliance, this encompasses user friendliness, intuitive use. If I go on your website and I have to sit there and go, what am I supposed to do now? That your website could be compliant.
Yeah.
It could be accessible by many other people's definitions because links are labeled, images have alt text, everything works with a screen reader. But if you can't find the things you're looking for, that is not an intuitive experience. That is not a user-friendly experience. So by my broader definition of accessibility, if I were auditing that website, I would put that in my report and say, this is something you should really consider improving.
Yeah, that's really nice. Thank you. And another thing that is on my mind when you talk about accessibility, like I earlier mentioned, many organizations and teams don't think about accessibility until the end. Or as compliance, like you had also pointed out. From your experience, what are some of the effective ways to build accessible and inclusive technology from the beginning, be it design, engineering, and product leadership, perhaps?
Well, you have to show people why it's important first. And it's not everybody, and this includes myself, we look at things through the lens of our own experience. Yeah. So my favorite example of this, I'm totally blind. I have been all my life. How often have I gotten on a podcast interview or a meeting where I needed to be on camera and forgotten to turn the light on? I don't need the light. But it tends to make it hard for you guys to see me when I'm in a dark room. So I have to broaden my lens beyond my own experience and remember to turn the light on. So it goes with people who use technology in the mainstream way. They use their eyes to see it, they use a mouse to operate it. They are challenged to think beyond that scope.
True.
But what oftentimes happens is people design for themselves. We design for ourselves. I'm gonna say we because I do the same darn thing. We all do it. It's a human thing. And then at the end, we say, "Oh no, this isn't compliant. We need to build accessibility into this thing," which results in a product that might not be fully accessible. It might make the ADA compliance standard by the skin of its teeth, but it's not fully accessible. So what I encourage people to do is going back to the very inception of a product, the idea for a product, through design, through construction, development, whatever, through iteration, refinement, all of those phases. Put yourself in the chair of the user. Put yourself in the chair, in my case, I need to put myself in the chair of someone who's sighted. I need to say, is everything that I'm doing visually appealing? Is it visually? Can everybody see what the things that they need to see to operate what I'm building? If I'm building a web page, do I have breaks in the text? I tend to put my text in paragraphs and essays. Do I have headings? Do I have lists? These are not only helpful for screen reader users when done properly, but they're also helpful for sighted users so that the eye has things to focus on and say, oh, we're starting a new section now. It's for sighted developers, for sighted product, designers, developers, builders, whatever. And this does not just include websites. It includes anything you're building. Yeah. Put yourself in the chair of a blind person. If I can't see this, are things labeled? Are images described so that I get the important information? Which, of course, depends on the image and its context, right?
Yeah.
Are links labeled? Are buttons labeled? Is everything... When you give instructions...
Yes.
And you say, click on the green button. You can say click on the green button, but you also need to include click on the green continue button. So that gives us two identifiers, right? The fact that it's green, which works for a lot of people, and the fact that it's labeled continue, which works for, everybody else.
When you sit with, let's say, product designers, from your experience, have there been times when perhaps the entire concept has to be redone? Because even just some of the things that you're mentioning, as someone that does a lot of documentation, I'm like, yeah, I probably need to improve on that. Have there been times from your experience where you would have to pretty much redo the product design?
Sometimes. Oftentimes it's just a matter of improving on what you already have. But I find in situations like that, a show 'em, don't tell 'em approach works best.
Okay. So for example?
So if, for example, I I go onto your website and it's just not accessible. There's no headings. Maybe there's visual headings, but there's no, coded headings. Links aren't labeled. There's like 10 links in a row labeled click here. I will actually sit down, open up your web page, and run my screen reader through it. This way it's not Angela telling you, oh, you need to fix this, you need to fix that, your website stinks. It's, oh, now I know why I need to do these things. Now I know the real life impact of these things.
That is true.
And once they see it, oftentimes they never unsee it.
That's very true. And based on that, you have also talked about how the accessibility industry is not just compliance, but also good for the bottom line. Are there any examples where this has changed the company's, let's say, revenue or impacted business goals when you've had this conversation with organizations?
I worked for the Department of Veterans Affairs, and obviously it's a government organization, but since we started really leaning hard into accessibility, engagement is up. Customers are a lot happier with the services. When they run studies, they don't get nearly as much negative feedback. They don't witness their customers. We call them customers with disabilities struggling. In terms of business, 25% of people out there have some sort of disability.
Wow.
The collective buying power is staggering. And it's over $2 trillion.
Yes.
And not only that, but we tend to have influence over our family and friends, right?
Absolutely.
I'll give you an example. There was a very well-known pizza chain quite some time ago that was excited the enmity of the disabled community by refusing to become accessible. Now they have since made improvements. But I persuaded not only my immediate family but my coworkers not to trade with that particular pizza chain, which we had traded with quite frequently. We we boycotted those guys for over a year until finally my teenage son, who for some reason likes second-rate pizza, literally sat me down and proved to me that the mobile app was now accessible.
Yeah. And I guess is there, this is just out of curiosity, are websites better than, let's say, mobile apps, or it's the same sort of?
No, it's completely different, and I'm glad you asked that question. Both things need to be accessible.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's actually, it requires a lot when a website is built properly. There are some things that need to be done to make it accessible, but a lot of it's going to be accessible by default. If you use the proper coding standards, I'm not going to get too technical here, but if you build using HTML as much as possible.
Okay.
A mobile app is different because you actually have to go in and put labels, literally put accessibility labels on things to make them accessible. So yeah, it is different. If you find mobile apps that aren't accessible, it could very well be that the developer just didn't know they just didn't know. I mean, the Apple Store, Apple's happy with it, so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, Apple's happy with it. Apple's all about accessibility, therefore the app's accessible, right? No.
Yeah. I guess the focus is always just to have it pass into the app store, and then, you think you're done, but probably
You think
not.
you're done.
Yeah. Okay, what about the age of AI? Do you see any opportunities or any changes that have happened in terms of making the digital world more accessible?
You know, AI is as good as the people who train it.
True, true.
So when I use my chat GPT, I make sure that it provides an accessible experience because I tell it to. Um, it can be trained to when it codes things to code them accessibly. It will not do so by default. You have to actually tell it. Which leads me to a point that I want to make because everybody, like every advance, like every quantum leap, when we
Yeah.
went from the horse to the tractor, everybody thought, oh, that's farm hands are gonna lose their jobs, this and this and that and that. Jobs weren't lost, jobs were changed.
Exactly.
And so it's gonna be with AI. You know, maybe AI can write code, but it can't design intuitively for human beings. It can't test products from a human being's perspective. And it can't intuitively do what you don't tell it to do.
Are there any areas of AI where you see possible real promises, like advantages?
Yes. If you train it to code accessibly, it will. Um, we can there are AI platforms that are in the works now that will automatically flag accessibility defects on your website. Not all of them. But say you forgot to put an alt text on an image. Now here we go with a term that some people don't know what it means. The alt
Yes.
text is basically a description of the image so that blind people know what it is. Now, it can be, say, if it's a picture of the California State Capitol, it's just going to say California State Capitol. That's the important thing. Nobody needs a detailed description of the California State Capitol. Just identify it. Sometimes you do go into more detail. It really depends on context. But say you're building a website and you forgot to add an alt text, which I don't think there's a web developer on the planet who hasn't done that from time to time. You just forget. The AI tool will flag it and be like, hey, you forgot to add an alt text here. So it can be your accessibility buddy. It won't catch everything, but it'll catch some things.
Sure. Sure. How best then? Because there's also a balance, which you also mentioned in a video that I saw, where sometimes it's too much. Too much can be too much, and too little is not good enough. How can developers then try to strike that balance without falling in the trap of just compliance?
You learn to do it over time. A couple of the mistakes that I see, like I said, over describing alt text. And there is a language called YARIA. It's basically a translator between JavaScript and a screen reader. So if you create a custom JavaScript widget, say you create an accordion, you know those things where you click on a button and something expands?
Yeah.
You need to add YARIA so that the screen reader knows what to do with that component. But some developers, once they discover ARIA, they want to do it for everything.
Okay.
And you either get a product that's over-engineered or a screen reader that talks way too much.
Yes. Yes. I did see an example of that when you were highlighting it. Well, you do own a company called Real Life Access. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
So we teach businesses how to make their products and services and their culture accessible. What do you do when a blind person walks into your store? What do you do when a person using a wheelchair is trying to get into your building? What do you do when a blind person applies to work for you? So there's 3 really broad categories of services that we offer, and we focus on digital accessibility. Though we can discuss physical accessibility if somebody needs a really in-depth physical accessibility assessment, we'll probably end up outsourcing that. But we can't answer general questions about it. So the first thing is an audit.
Great.
I'll look at, say, your website, for example. Tell you what aspects of it aren't accessible or aren't intuitive, and I go beyond the guidelines.
Okay. Yeah.
And unlike a lot of people, I'll give you actionable steps you can take to fix it. So this is what's wrong, and this is what you can do. And I'll often link to resources. So, for example, I can automatically scan a page and tell you if it doesn't meet color contrast. It has to have a certain color contrast in order for people with low vision to see it. But I'm probably the last person you want advising you on what color something should be.
Why is that?
I've never seen a color in my life.
I actually thought you meant you are able to use the assistive technology to then provide the advice. Okay, I see what you meant.
Right. So what I do is I link to something called the WebAIM Color Contrast Checker, which allows the user to either drag and drop colors into the thing or enter the color codes. Every distinct color has a distinct code. And it'll tell you if those colors meet contrast. So you can actually find colors that look good, that fit your branding, but that also meet color contrast. Now, I also offer accessibility consulting. So I will sit down and teach you how to make your website accessible. I'll teach you how to make future products accessible.
Okay.
And not just a step by step, chapter 1, adding alt text. No.
Yeah.
From the perspective of the user, I'll show you what you need to think about and what you need to keep in mind so that you always build accessible products in the future. Awesome. And then we get into the technical stuff.
Yes. I like that you take away some of the basic stuff, because some of those are pretty common. What are some of the technical stuff that have been common across the board?
Well, keyboard accessibility is a big one. Things need to be keyboard accessible, not just for blind people, but also for people who use voice to text, because the voice to text software actually interacts with things as a keyboard would.
Okay.
If something isn't keyboard accessible, someone who can't manipulate a mouse won't be able to use it. Proper labeling. Oftentimes people forget to label their clickable elements.
True.
So you have a button and the screen reader just says button. And your voice to text user is not going to know what to tell the computer.
No. As you speak, it's a lot of those conversations that I see happening in teams, within teams. Yeah. And I also see how it's very valuable to then have the diverse voices within those teams. And usually when people talk about diversity, it's like the categories of race, geography, gender, socioeconomic status. But as you speak, I'm thinking, okay, it will be very helpful.
I can't think of a more equal opportunity benefactor than accessibility.
Exactly. And in your view, how can then sort of disability and accessibility as a conversation of inclusion be integrated in these conversations when we talk about inclusion?
It needs to be a key component, because inclusion, too often we get caught up in labeling people.
That is true.
And we get caught up in, this person belongs to a certain marginalized group. But how about let's flip that on its head? How about let's take accessibility, which is a concrete thing that we can do to level the playing field for 25% of the population. I mean, accessibility doesn't care about your labels. Accessibility benefits people without disabilities, as I've illustrated.
Yeah.
So I would even make the argument that the number one thing that you can do right now to increase the diversity of your organization is make it accessible. And that includes your culture as well. Do you have a culture that's open to difference? What do you do? Like I said, if a blind person walks into your store, a lot of people freak out. Oh my God, she's blind. She's going to break everything. She's going to get lost. What do I do? First of all, take a deep breath. It's okay.
Yeah.
We do this all the time. This is not our first rodeo. And, just start a conversation. Ask, if we need help, and if we do, what kind of help we need.
Something that I can think of, and I'm really hoping, I'm trying to find the best words, and I'll try my best. When it comes to people with disabilities, especially visible disabilities, and I'll use it broadly since you had previously defined it, I think some of the most natural instinct is kind of, I'll just say like pity, or maybe not just knowing how to respond. What would be your advice to like that?
And that's where the cultural accessibility piece comes in. And at the
And I
root,
apologize if it's not a good thing to bring up, but
it's a great
I
thing to
just
bring up. In
okay.
fact, it is the best thing to bring up, because if you don't accept with casual nonchalance that blind people and people in wheelchairs and people, who knows, are out there in the world doing the same things you do and doing them competently, then you're not going to put your heart and soul into accessibility. They that are pitied can never be equal.
That is true.
So the cultural accessibility component is huge.
Yeah. And honestly, it's not a conversation that I usually hear. And if I'm being very honest, when I just hear cultural accessibility, I am more thinking of culture in terms of nationalities and things like that. So it, it it's a good thing that I have learned.
Well, and which reinforces for me the need to continue to define it, because there is that, but that's not the cultural accessibility that I'm talking about. I'm talking about creating an organizational culture that embraces difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which spills over into different nationalities, different religions, different, it's really a culture that's adaptable, that's flexible.
True. True.
If you need to take Saturday off instead of Sunday, we'll work with that.
Yeah.
If you need to pray at certain times of the day, we'll work with that. If you need a private office because open plant offices are torture for you, as they are for a lot of people, we'll work with that. If you need a screen reader on your computer, we'll work with that. It doesn't have to be a reasonable accommodation. You're blind. Blind people need screen readers.
Exactly.
Fact of life.
Exactly. And what advice then do you have for leaders, or how do you speak to team members to sort of have this mindset shift or awakening?
It is a mindset shift, and you can't force it.
No.
It starts with having conversations. Not guilting people, not shaming people. The DEI movement does way too much guilting and shaming, and that doesn't work. That just causes the backlash. But really having a conversation and explaining how different people do things and modeling it yourself, right?
Yes.
Model it yourself. If somebody needs Sundays off to go to church, give them Sundays off. It's a fact of life. Some people go to church.
Yes.
If somebody needs to take the hour between 2 and 3 to pick up their kid from school, that's fine. Work around that. Work with that.
Yeah.
If somebody needs a screen reader, if they come in with a long white cane, they need a screen reader. They meet all the qualifications, they're the one for the job. This is not about lowering standards. This is about leveling the playing field.
Exactly.
Don't make them ask for a reasonable accommodation.
No.
Work with them to get a screen reader, or let them use their own license. Let them bring their own assistive technology.
But is that inclusive if they have to bring their own, let's say, licenses and other assistive technology,
It's
wouldn't.
inclusive to give them the option, because a lot of us
Okay.
will do that rather than going through an annoying and reasonable accommodation process. The
I see.
reasonable accommodation process makes them separate. It others them.
Yeah.
We need the special accommodation for the special disabled people because they have special needs. No. Just fold it into the way you do things. Work collaboratively with them to make the work environment work for them.
Yeah. Great. From
And
your
that is really at the crux of the Hiring for Champions program, which is it has really become our flagship cultural accessibility course.
yes, and you offer it to organizations.
Organizations, HR departments, executives.
Yes. I think it's I didn't get a chance to look into it, but I believe it's really good just having a conversation with you. One, there's so many things that I can think of in my daily work where I could be more inclusive, conversations, and just challenging some of the things that
Yeah.
I don't know, just ignore or
And
yeah,
I
so
want to make one more point.
yes.
As you strive to be inclusive, be so casually.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people get sidetracked by things that we really don't need to get sidetracked by. For example, and you don't do this, thankfully, and I commend you for not doing this, but a lot of people get hung up on, say, for example, using the words look and see to a blind person. And honestly, we use those words all the time.
Yeah.
It makes you look, and here I go. It makes you look awkward
Yeah.
when you trip over that. When you use, not you, but I'm using the universal you.
Yes. Yes.
When you use phrases like differently abled, what the heck does that even mean anyway?
Yeah.
Because you're afraid to say disabled. We say disabled all the time. And if you run into somebody that doesn't say disabled, mirror their language. This is not performative. In fact,
No.
in fact, you might not even get any brownie points and social media points for this. But what you'll get is an organization whose culture works for everybody.
That is true.
Where your employees and your customers can show up as their best selves.
I mean, I also see how this could be a default training for, let's say, managers, not in just the accessibility language, but more of the cultural accessibility. In the same way that they are taught how to manage people,
Yep.
but it's also creating that inclusive environment for everyone, as you mentioned.
I'll give you an example that I think is going to bring this home. As a totally blind person, math class is always an adventure, right? Because most teachers are like, now you take this, you multiply by this, you bring this over here, and then you could hear the writing on the whatever
Board.
passes for a blackboard these days. Okay,
Yeah.
here's your answer. So I've had to, throughout my school career, be a strong advocate and say, hey, could you please verbalize everything you're writing down so that I know what you're doing? So, the first couple weeks are, me training the professor. Every single math class I've ever taken, I kid you not, at least one of my sighted classmates comes up and thanks me.
Wow.
And if one person thanks me, there's others that want to. They just, people are
They didn't have the courage.
people are shy. Yeah, people. Well, they're shy. They don't want to admit that they, that they don't process things like they think everybody else does. Whatever the thing is. But there's always one brave soul that comes up and thanks me.
Yeah.
Which just goes to show you that the things that you do to make things accessible are going to benefit a lot more people than you know. I'll give you another example.
Yeah.
Flip the script a little bit. When I worked for the local community college back about, 8-10 years ago, whatever it was at this point, I oversaw the program through which professors could caption their course videos. So, you're watching the video and you have the captions on the screen, right? So that sighted people can read, the dialogue. There's this one professor, she taught humanities and a lot of cultural stuff, and she also worked with a lot of the folks for whom English is their second language. She was just raving about the closed captioning because not only did they benefit people who were deaf or hard of hearing, but they benefited people for whom English is a second language. And what if you're in a noisy environment and you can't hear? What if you're watching it from a library and you forgot your headphones?
Yeah.
So accessibility truly benefits everybody. There are very few accessibility improvements that only benefit a certain group of people. And those can just be done right along with, they're so minor in the grand scheme of things in terms of implementation, not in terms of benefit, but in terms of implementation. They can just be swept up along with everything else and just done.
Those are very good examples. And for me as well, the key takeaway is just challenging my everyday lens of accessibility and inclusion. So I'm grateful for bringing those up.
Not a problem. That's what I do.
Yes.
The disruptor.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what we need. We need people to disrupt the status quo, because we do not grow if we don't get disrupted.
We all look at things through the lens of our own experience. And it is not discrimination to do so. It's simple human nature. Too often people in the DEI space, again, guilting and shaming. Oh, you're discriminating against this group of people. No, they're not. They're just being humans looking at things through the lens of their own experience until and unless somebody comes along with the heart of a teacher, not the heart of a prosecutor, and broadens that lens.
That is so true. Yeah. We're always operating from our scope. Yeah. Okay. So, advice, I would say to leaders, but you've already provided that as we go into a close. I think on a more personal note, what advice would you give to me as a mother with a young child, and just how to have the discussions and conversations around inclusiveness and accessibility? How can I have that conversation with him?
With casual nonchalance. Hey, there's some people that are blind. You might see blind people at your school. This is how blind people use technology. This is how blind people get around. And the one thing I would say, don't discourage your child from asking questions.
Yes.
I
think that, yeah.
You hear so much about, it's a common story, right? That this little kid runs up to somebody with a disability and says, "What's that stick for?" referring to Long Like Kate, and the parent just like, no, don't ask that question. Don't ask that. No. Let them ask that question. Because in the overwhelming majority of cases, we want to answer that question because we want the kids to know. Now, there's going to be some grumpy people that won't want to answer the question.
Yeah.
But most of the time, we want to talk to your kids. We want to explain that we can do things. Because if you educate them young, it's a lot easier than educating them when they already have preconceived ideas.
Wow.
So
Well,
parents,
really
set aside your embarrassment.
Yeah.
And let your kids ask. Let your kids be curious kids.
Yes. I can think of an instance where he saw a wheelchair for the first time, and the person was going really fast, and for him, he just thought it was so cool because he's into cars and things like that. He's like, Mom, can I have one of those? And what is that? And I just panicked.
Love technology.
Yeah.
I worked for, when I worked for the college and in the job before that, I had a bunch of Braille alphabet cards. Yeah. And every time a little kid came into my office, I'd give them a Braille alphabet card. And it would fascinate them, for about 30 seconds. But, whoa. But it would fascinate them long enough for the parents and I to get done what we needed to get done, and I would hope they would learn something.
Wow, that's amazing.
And then they got to keep the card.
Oh, very nice of you. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I have had a good time talking to you. Definitely fulfilled the have fun on my part. I hope the feeling is mutual.
It's been fun. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
I am also privileged that you gave me the opportunity to speak with you. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. And before I let you go, where can people find you and where can people learn more about inclusive accessibility from your lens?
So you can find me at www.reallifeaccess.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure you've got all the information, the LinkedIn, the
Absolutely.
website and all that. You can email
Just in case
me.
you have a preference of where to find you.
There you go. Email me at Angela at reallifeaccess.com. And I look forward to, book a meeting with me. Go on my website and book a meeting with me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Not a problem.
Now, Angela just gave us a masterclass on accessibility, didn't she? And I'm still processing everything that I learned, to be honest. And since the recording, I have really improved how I look at accessibility and continue to learn more. Here is what stuck with me. Those who are pitted can never be equal. Accessibility doesn't care about your labels. It levels the playing field for everyone. And show them, don't tell them, because once people see the impact, they can never unsee it. Remember, it's not about guilting or shaming. It's not about performative language. It's not about casual nonchalant. It's about leading with the heart of a teacher and building things that work for everyone from the very beginning. I would absolutely encourage you to connect with Angela at the reallifeaccess.com or find her on LinkedIn. Check out her Hiring for Champions program, especially if you're in HR or leadership and ready to make accessibility a cultural priority for not just yourself, the organization that you work for, but for the society at large. Thank you for listening to the Tech Girl podcast, and do subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're coming through from YouTube, or connect with me on LinkedIn. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and remember to turn the lights on. I'm Gertrude. Goodbye.